the tenant's already paid the mortgage off. So, kind of a give and take. And I was like, wait a minute, this is like free money for the rest of your life? And they went, well, yes and no, kind of. I mean, there are expenses. And I was like, wow, that is really cool.
Welcome to the Real Estate Reserve Podcast. I'm Jason Balin from Hard Money Bankers, co-host Ian Horowitz from Equity Warehouse. Out here on the East Coast where we're both located, it is getting up to about 100 degrees. So it's a little bit crazy depending on where you're tuning into or watching this episode. As if this is your first time tuning in, welcome. Promise we'll have a lot of fun. Probably learn something as well. And on the other side, if you're a return viewer, follower, watcher, listener, subscriber, thanks so much for all the support. We certainly couldn't do it. I'm definitely looking forward to our guest, Jon, that we're going to introduce here in a second.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely excited to have him come on. I met him out at the Deal Champs Summit. I got talking to him. We had a bunch of common friends through some other masterminds and some people that you know as well based on his location. I said, bro, how'd you get here? You flying home tomorrow? Because he said he was from Oklahoma City. And he said, yeah, I'm flying myself home. I said, damn it, I should be doing that too, because I do have my pilot's license and I need to keep up. But with that being said, before we bring Jon in, guys, the best thing we can do is go ahead and share the show. That's the best token of appreciation we can give him. We don't care about 5-star likes or subscribes. That's for us. It's not about us. It's about our guests who are coming in and sharing their stories. And we get to learn equally as much as you guys do when we interview our guests. So please share the show. Enough for me. Let's talk to the man, Jon Nolen from Oklahoma City. What's up, brother? How you doing?
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Well, we're over here sweating our, I won't be polite about it since it's my show. We're over here sweating our balls off, and you're out in Colorado where there might still be snow on the ground, huh?
Yeah, it's nice. We have the windows open, and it's like 64 degrees in the house. Natural air conditioning.
Yeah, it sounds absolutely perfect. You want to go ahead and introduce yourself to our audience so everyone can get to know you?
Yeah, Jon Nolen. I'm out of Oklahoma City. Long story short, got out of high school, had a lot of fun partying in college, a whole lot of fun. Didn't last very long. Spent 5 years in the Marine Corps. Came back, spent a couple years contracting overseas. Got back into tech in Oklahoma, and spent about 10 years there, and just got tired of the grind, basically. And eventually talked my wife into buying our first rental, then our first flip, and kind of grew from there. Been active in real estate for 12, 13 years now.
When was kind of that aha moment where you're like, hey, I want to buy real estate? And when did kind of that start? Maybe how did that start? Did that start because you read a book or because you knew someone that had a lot of money that owned real estate?
I remember it very well. I was 17. My parents ended up with 2 rentals. Different, but they weren't trying to get rentals when I was growing up, but they had 2 rentals. And one of them, the people moved out. They'd been there a number of years. And nowadays I would love going into this house because they never let the dogs out, smelled like piss. But I was 17 and I got to clean it up. And so I'm going through all this work, and my parents didn't seem very upset. And so I finally asked them, I was like, they destroyed this house. Why aren't you upset? And their response was that, they're definitely not happy about it, but the tenant's already paid the mortgage off. So, kind of a give and take. And I was like, wait a minute, this is like free money for the rest of your life? And they went, well, yes and no, kind of. I mean, there are expenses. And I was like, wow, that is really cool. So that's where the seed was planted. That's where I originally started thinking about it. Then later on, Amy and I just had money sitting in a savings account doing nothing, earning, less than 1% interest. And her family was very anti-real estate investing because they had lost some money back in the 80s on it. So I finally talked her into it and just grew from there.
That's a good story and a good kind of aha moment, and a lot of maturity at the age of 17, right? To even like understand the concept, thoroughly. And then, so how many years later was your first rental? 10 years later? give or take?
Oh, let's see. First rental would have been probably about 14 years later.
Got it.
See, I feel like we skip. I think we need to get through the party days in college to figure out how we got to this. I think that's the real hinge point. But no, seriously, Jason and I were talking about this just the other day of like leaving wealth to your kids, or like, have them coming into your business. Like your parents giving those lessons, like they took the risk that then they could pass the lessons on. We talk about this all the time. Is like, well, our kids might not join the business, but they will have a better chance to springboard off of things that maybe we have learned. And I think your parents, it sounds like, gave you that little bit of just like inkling of knowledge to be able to do that.
Yeah, that's right. They did. And Amy and I, our kids, we have 3 kids. Our son turns 13 soon, and our girls are 14. And we don't, have them actively involved in the business, but they're involved somewhat. And we really work hard to teach them what real estate can do, and what, choosing the right path and being very specific with what you're going to do can bring to them, and highlight that you don't have to go to college to be successful. And I mean, that's why I ended up in college spending a lot of money partying and learning nothing.
Yeah.
I ended up going back to school. I got my master's, but initially it wasn't the right path for me.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, dude, some of the best life lessons I learned was working for the fire department, right? You got to see all walks of life. I got to presume that like, you briefly skipped over the Marines, but you spent some years in the Marines. Like, were there any learning lessons either there or the partying in college that allowed you to be successful later on in life? I'm being serious, being successful later on in life with combination with what your parents taught you, because I don't think people realize like everything you're taking in, even as a kid, all the way up through today, everything we're taking in now, like the stuff we're learning from you, somewhere later on in life, I might use this experience that I learned from Jon. Do you think there was anything there in those 2 experiences that helped you be a better real estate investor later on?
Oh yeah. What came from my initial thing in college was understanding that you don't have to follow a path that everybody else follows. Just because people say you have to go to college, you have to do this, you have to do that, doesn't mean it's reality. You need to actually look at your life and what you want to accomplish and go from there. That was the big thing that I took from my first college experience. The Marine Corps, I mean, discipline, following systems and the importance of systems, and people understanding their role. There's a lot of times people think, somebody's in this role and it's kind of a minor role, so it's not that important. What happens if that role comes out, or if that person comes out? It could be huge. It could be massive, even though they're doing something that's very simple. And then delegation. I mean, Marine Corps, all the military branches, but Marine Corps especially, very, very high on delegation and moving stuff down. Those are what really, from those 2 experiences, helped me. Now, I will also say my parents were entrepreneurs. So the concept of owning my own business and being my own boss wasn't foreign to me. That was something that I grew up with. Yeah. Amy's parents, same thing. They had their own businesses when she was growing up. And so that kind of a third angle there just really had us thinking, man, I don't want to be working for the man. I want to be the man.
Yeah. I think that's a good concept that like most people aren't, fortunate enough to have, or, and they kind of have to do it themselves. Right. Like, I remember early on, one of my business partners' moms was like, "Oh, you guys are starting your own business? Like, that's risky. Like, that's risky." And, his pretty bland response was, her direct response was like, "Well, I think your W-2 job's risky because you have one income stream, and, you could wake up one day and be fired, and then you don't have anything else." So I do see. And here's the thing, like, growing up with entrepreneurial parents could be great if, you make the most out of it, or it might not be, right? It could be like, hey, I see the stress that's on my parents. Yep. The entrepreneurial business owner jobs, or business owners, a decade ago, or a generation ago, I should say, is very different than what they are today. Right.
Oh yeah.
They weren't sitting in front of a computer and potentially, making as much money as they wanted to make. So it was different. It was a lot of hard work and grind and things like that. So that could be better. It could be a good thing or a bad thing. The good part is like, wow, they're hungry. They're always supporting themselves. The other thing is like, my parents worked tons and tons of hours and they didn't see me. So there's always sides of it. But I think this day and age, and you guys probably can both attest, just entrepreneurial journey, not that it's easier because it's still hard. It's still hard, but there's a lot of resources. And I think it's very appealing for a lot of people just because it's out there. It's out there. It's easy to get your hands on it. People are envious of that.
Yeah, it is. There's so many resources now, and technology has taken things so far. I mean, I'm in Colorado. My business is in Oklahoma City. All of our people are in Oklahoma City, and I'm working here, but I'm just remote. I don't have to be there. That wasn't an option that my parents had when they had an accounting business. They had to be there. If they went on vacation, they were on vacation. Technology is great. It could be challenging at times, just like anything, but it can bring us a lot of benefits.
Yeah, I think if used correctly, right? Like, and that takes you down the whole AI debate and whatever else. That's probably a conversation for another time. And is society doomed or whatever? But let's talk about some of that. Like, from a tech standpoint and being able to be remote. We operate a bunch of self-storage from several states away. What systems have you had to put inside your business to be able to operate from afar? I mean, you're a pilot, you have a plane. I presume you get around the country a lot of the time. What systems have you built out to be able to do that?
It's been an evolution. We've had different systems at different times. A lot of documenting processes and then getting them redocumented and whatnot, training staff. We have pretty much everything running out of one system. From when a lead comes in until it's gone through purchase, gone through rehab, or for wholesaling it, they all go through one system. So we keep all of our tasks in one place, so workflows can actively be created and just automatically come up for people to do. So people know what they need to do in our team. We go through it, we train them, but we use the software to also reinforce what they need to do and make sure that they're doing it.
Yeah, and how many of your you just give us some background, like how many employees do you have, and how many are stateside, how many are overseas? What's that look like?
We've gone from having a small team to a big team to a small team. Right now, our team is 7 or 8 people. They're all in Oklahoma City. We don't have anybody overseas right now. We've had a team of 15, I think, plus 3 or 4 construction crews that we were running at one point, and we got into the bigger is better, then we realized, no, it's not. This isn't what I want to be doing. So we've shrunk back down to 7 or 8 of us.
Which is still a legit team size. I mean, that's a legit payroll every single week. That's 8 families to feed. If they all have significance, you're talking about 32 people you're responsible for.
Yeah.
What type of culture have you had to build inside your company so everyone has like this? Like, having a system allows people to get to the common goal, but like, are all your team members on board and they know what the active goal is to get to, like what they're all working towards?
We do. We try to keep a very tight-knit family type atmosphere. I have a tendency with my Marine Corps side, my very system task driven side, I have a tendency to become too focused and too dry, if you will. So to counteract that, I like to joke around a lot at the office. We have a lot of playing around. We keep things light. And overall, our goal is helping people. Now, if it's somebody that has a house that's in a bad situation, needs to get rid of it, helping them or providing good housing. We have 100+ rentals. Our focus is not to be a slumlord. Doesn't mean everybody's getting the Taj Mahal, but there's a balance there, and they all know that is our end goal. So that's what we're always focusing on.
Related to some of the staff, do you have a COO or a CEO, or do you kind of still operate as that at that size?
Good question. We had a operations manager up until a little over a year ago, and we ended up parting ways with him, got rid of him, and we haven't had the need to really step in and have somebody else fill that role because of the systems we have in place. Now, that being said, when questions come up, they are coming to my wife, Amy, or I. She works actively in the business with me as well. She got laid off from her corporate job, I think, 5 years ago, and that's when she joined with me full time. So they still come to her for questions, or if it's with acquisitions, they come to me. But for the most part, we don't need that level of employee on the team.
Yeah. No, I was just curious. It's always interesting to to chat with companies that probably have anywhere between like 4 and 10 employees to see if it's kind of like a flat hierarchy or a flat, structure,
Mhm.
or if there's actual hierarchy, and if so, like where do they fit in? Who was your first full-time employee? Like
First full-time
related to
employee.
like their jobs, their tasks.
Yeah, what she did, we called her our office coordinator at that point. Basically, now we call her a lead manager and assistant. She answered the phones when leads called in. She
Yep.
interfaced with contractors if I needed, did any type of office stuff, accounting, QuickBooks. That was the first full-time hire I did. So that at that point, I was able to, because I was buying the houses, so I was able to go out and buy more houses. I didn't have to deal with all the other mundane stuff.
Sure.
Then later on, I added another buyer into the mix and then got myself out of the buying.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, there's so many real estate investors out there, even if they focus on single families or multifamily or storage or whatever it is, that it's them and it's maybe them and a partner. It could be a spouse, could be just a business partner. And this happens for hard money lending companies as well, that, I talk to, where they desperately need help. They're just not sure what. And the first position's a hard position because they might be the jack of all trades. And that's not obviously ideal because those different positions have different personality types, right? Like an accounting, somebody who's good at accounting typically might be the best front facing, person with a seller. So we recognize that, but you kind of just have to band-aid it or, along until you have the budget and,
But I think the problem is
Yep.
that like most business owners are like jack of all trades, right? Because we have to be, because we're trying to stand something up. And they're like, oh, just duplicate myself and just hire another jack of all trades. But you can't, right? Like,
Nope. And I was conflicted. It took me a while to decide who to hire first because I thought, okay, let's hire an acquisitions person so I can get more money coming in. I guess the fear kind of not having enough money for to support an employee had me at first. But then talking to other people and that had been in the business longer and discussing things with my wife, it's like, all right, no, get my foundation first, just like a house. Get the foundation first, and then you can make everything else bigger after that. But if your foundation isn't solid, you're just going to end up kind of trying to prop it up yourself. And I didn't want to be in that office role. I didn't like answering the phones and taking the lead calls. It's just, I can do it, but it's not what I enjoyed. And then by offloading that to somebody else, I was able to take more appointments, go buy more houses, and make more money without having the higher expense of an acquisition person.
yeah, no, that definitely makes sense. But then I guess that's how you could also end up in the bigger is better, right? Like you kind of talked about this. I want to kind of dive into it, but you start building a team and now it's like, well, I got a team and I got to support them. So I got to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And then like margins go away. What was your inflection point to realize that like being bigger is not better and just being hyper focused to producing more capital is actually better and doing maybe less deals to make more money? Like what was that for you?
When I realized it wasn't a specific time, but it kind of wore me out and I started to get a little burnout. And I realized I hate going into the office. I hate going in and having our team meetings and just sitting there and shaking my head like, why did you do this? Why did you do that? People are always going to make mistakes. That's fine. But it was with more employees, a larger team, because we had a little bit of a hierarchy, but not a lot. It still came back to me and I'd hear about it, I'd be involved. And it was just like, oh, I don't want to deal with this. I either need to grow a lot larger so I can completely remove myself from operations, or let's just take it down a little bit smaller where I enjoy things and have better employees. So we're a little bit flat, but we have better base of employees to where they're able to handle their sections 95% of the time, and they just come to us with 5% of the time.
Yeah, the two big key takeaways that I think a lot of real estate investors do fall in the trap is they just think bigger is better. It's like I can just do more and more and more and more and more and more and more, and it's just like, well, guess what? That stuff that you enjoy in the business, chances are you're probably not going to be involved in that anymore. And like you don't want to be oh, I'm not good at hiring and I'm not good at that stuff. It's like, well, you're going to be an HR manager at the beginning as well, because no one else, you're not just going to hire somebody that's just going to handle all those things. And you're going to be head of marketing. And yeah, you like going in there and restoring houses, or maybe you like talking to sellers or buyers. Well, that's probably not going to be the big part of your business anyway, right, moving forward either at that point. So, two big takeaways is, obviously bigger isn't better. And then, like, number two, focus on your bottom line. That's the only thing that matters. We all I'm sure can attest that we know lots of real estate investors that have a big business, that they do a lot of stuff, and their bottom line net profit take home is not all that sexy. And it should be. And then some of the most successful real estate investors I know are smaller operations that do several big ticket projects a year, and they make a fortune, and it's on easy street. And I know that it's not sexy to be envious of that for a lot of folks. They just want to do more and more and more and more. But, like, stop worrying about units and numbers and all of this, and just worry about your bottom line profit.
Worry about what actually matters. Not I had 232 contracts last year. Okay, how many did you close? 12. Come on.
It's not worth it at all, man. There's not enough time on this earth to sit there and just grind away for nothing, right?
We know, Ian and I know a lot of people in our local market that own a lot of stuff, and it's their bottom line, their P&Ls aren't all that sexy. Promise you that. And here's the other problem with it. You get stuck in that trap and you're screwed, right? You got 100 people, 100 people on payroll, or you have this and this. Like, you have to continue to do deals in order just to break even. Like, it ends up being hamster wheel. It ends up being all or nothing. It's like, hey, you're going to be up here or you're going to be bankrupt, and there's nowhere in the middle. And you really only have one choice: to continue to climb.
So how do you even have that conversation? You got 15 employees. Like Jason said, guess what? You hire people, you're the HR manager, but guess what? You also got to fire those people. How do you have that hard conversation and walk in and say, that's it? Like, you're like, not like, I know it's not that black and white, but that's it. You're gone. We're going different direction.
I am probably one of the worst people at letting people go.
We all are.
Some advice I got at one point was, don't go into reasons. Don't get, because then it'll be a debate. Just be matter of fact with them. And I try to make sure they always know it's coming. Like, hey, we're focusing on this KPI. We're focusing on this or this. And they know that they're doing bad. And then, okay, well, hey, we need to have a talk. And they know what's about to happen. But if I need to let somebody go, I'm just straight up with them. Just, hey, this isn't working out. I wish you the best. And it's like a 30-second conversation.
Yeah. So I 100% agree with that, and I think, and my business partner Chris uses this and explained this to me a little bit, and he learned that. I mean, we started it together, this business, like we learned it together, but you do it in like a 3-tier approach, so they know it's kind of coming, so it's not a surprise on the 3rd tier. So it's like, hey, listen, like, FYI, like, honestly, you've been slacking a little bit in this particular, or whatever the case is. I don't know. Something related to be like, yeah, I get it. No problem. And then, you do it again and you make it easy for yourself. And that's, that's kind of actually how I sell in general. Sometimes when it's like a longer sales process, instead of going right to the point, I'm like, hey, listen, like, love to help you, but like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to accomplish what you want to accomplish. Right. It might be closer to this. And you like kind of throw out, but I don't know. Let me go back. Let me try to figure out what I can do. Right. So I think if you follow it the right way, I mean, I think I agree with you. It makes it, even though it's, hard to do, it makes it a little bit easier.
Yeah. And it still sucks. And, like I said earlier, we have a family-like environment or atmosphere. And so that makes it even harder. But everybody also understands that it's a collective effort. And it's all about the team, not just about us. And it's about helping people. And so if you set everything up right, just like anything else, if you set it up right, then you'll be a lot better off.
Yeah. Can I back up and just ask one quick question? And then I know you have this Pete REI software that was on the website, and it's pretty cool. We can maybe dive into why you started that. But quick question. The first deal you ever did, where did you find that deal, and how did you finance it?
Our first deal that we ever did, we got that one off MLS. We had some cash sitting. We found it on MLS. I knew nothing about buying wholesale or direct marketing, anything else. And agents kept showing us houses that needed a ton of work. And I was like, I have a full-time job. I don't want to fix a house. I just want a rental that I can move somebody in. I want it turnkey. So I ended up finding one in Moore, Oklahoma. It cost $100,000, no joke. And the rent was $1,000 a month. It was a commercial loan with a local bank we knew. So we got to put down 20%, $20K. And we cash flowed net of zero after several years, because it was all going into a 15-year note, and we had 20K sitting in it, and it was kind of like, man, this sucks. But I knew that it was going to be worth it in the long run, because we had the debt pay down, we were getting equity, the appreciation was going, and we sold it. We haven't sold very many of our rentals, but we did sell that one 3-4 years later. It had appreciated 20%, so we pulled out the 20 that we had, another 20 of appreciation, then whatever the debt pay down was. And that was the key for Amy. That's when she was like, oh, this is kind of cool. We just doubled our money.
Yeah. Good. Okay.
Later on, we realized there's a lot better ways to buy property and actually have equity that you're not having to pay for.
How long did it take you to go from deal 1 to deal 2? Did it take you that 4-year run for your wife to buy in, or you're like, yo, this is great, I'm in?
It took that long. And then our second one we got, she was admittedly loving, and I liked watching with her too, HGTV, and she started thinking, hey, this could be fun to flip a house. So we found an REO deal off an auction website, and that house was bad. It was real bad. And I did most of the work myself. I like working with my hands, and I knew that long term it wouldn't be the way to go, but I wanted to be in there doing it. So I had a better understanding, and contractors couldn't BS me as easy. And I did most of the work there. It took me about a year of working on that house, nights and weekends, before it was finally done. Then this is back before the market was great, and it took 6 months to sell. And we did really well on that one. And then that kind of timing just led right into when I got burned out of IT and decided to move into real estate to free up time and have time for the kids and their appointments and stuff.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. So you obviously you've been grinding it out. You build a team. Your background's tech. How do you end up on Pete, your software, and like what does it do? And was it something that you were using in your business already, or you just found a better solution?
I hate inefficiencies. I really, really hate inefficiencies. And there were a few things that really just drove me nuts. We had a phone system, we had a CRM, we had a task management system. We'd end up at the rehab or the sale or the wholesale, and we'd have a question about a house, and we had to have one team member had to get with another team member to look in the CRM because they weren't in that CRM. They were over here. Notes wouldn't always transfer over. People would text in pictures into the phone system, and sometimes they would get downloaded and uploaded in CRM, sometimes not. And then also when moving from a contract, getting the contract and rehabbing, because we do a lot of rentals and flips, so much was lost between those. I mean, we had a template, we had things in place to move it over, but still we had information different places. So I started just wanting to bring everything into one system. That's really where it started. I wanted to have, from when a lead comes in, we get it under contract. If we wholesale it, great, can do it in there. If we flip it, if we turn it into a rental, we can track basic rental information there. And all lenders want a different spreadsheet basically every year. They're all very similar, but they're all a little bit different. Well, we were using Airtable to maintain all that information. So it's just, we had stuff way too many places, and we'd end up with a question of, okay, is this the current ARV or is this the current ARV? Because we're looking at two different systems. And so I just decided to write a program to bring it all together for us. My tech background helped, and we ended up hiring a development team and spent 2 years building it out. And released it, I don't know, a year ago or so.
Nice.
Wow.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think it's the way of the future. You know, we were kind of joking about AI, and I've been sourcing like AI, not AI, but like underwriting softwares and everything else. And I got the same like entrepreneurial mindset you do. I'm just like, all right, let's just go build something, you know. And I think that is so cool that you have the ability to do that and be able to grow it. You know, I'm sure there's a lot of features. Tech's always changing. I mean, you're a tech guy. How do you feel about tech changing the real estate business as a whole, not only with your software, but everything in between as other people continue to develop products?
Oh, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be real interesting, especially over the next, I want to say 12 to 18 months with AI, because more and more people are starting to use AI, and it takes people using it for it to get better. It's not at the point that I am confident in enough that I have it involved in our business, but the more people that do use it for different things, the better as a whole it'll come. So I think AI is going to be the biggest. I mean, a lot of developers are now using AI to help write their software. They'll write into AI basically what they want to do, then it'll produce a section of code for them that they can just copy and paste and then put into their program. So I think that's going to be the biggest key.
Yeah, no, it's going to be interesting, but that also takes me back to society's doomed. Makes me nervous all the time. You know, we're going to end up. What was that Will Smith movie? AI? Was it? No, what was that?
iRobot.
iRobot or Terminator or something like that. Next, you know, but who knows? So, or it could be the opposite. What was that other one where the kids are playing games all the time? Man, I forget. But the dudes they're literally just they're all in working on video game consoles.
Ready Player One.
Yeah, Ready Player One.
Yeah.
Phenomenal movie.
Yeah. Either way, I always wonder.
Just everybody live in the metaverse.
Yeah, well,
exactly. I thought you were talking about games like physical games. I'm like, yo, that's any movie from the 90s.
No, yeah. Well, no. When we were playing Nintendo, it was a little different, but that's why I keep this damn book on my in my bookshelf at all times. That's why you got to go out and produce, boys. Whether it's AI or anything, go out and read it. I've been on a kick recently. I'm debating about rereading it. John, one little topic I do want to cover. You do have a plane. How often do you use it? How often do you go across the country? This is selfish interview questions for me because I just redid my vision board. I stuck a PC-12 up there. It's an unattainable goal for me right now, but it's like, you know what? If I'm going to do it and buy one, that's what I would buy. So what, how's flying changed your real estate investing career as a whole?
Flying has changed it a ton. Just the freedom that we have, we can go other places and be somewhere quickly. Like mentioned, you and I met out at Stratton and Jason's event. I just flew out to it. I went from one event to another, just took my plane and just jumped between them, and wasn't a big deal. I always wanted to be a pilot, but I always thought it was unattainable. I thought it was out of reach, and that was just a limiting belief I had. It was certainly always reachable. I fly quite a bit. We fly generally at least once a month. I put 150 or 175 hours in last year. But we've flown, I've flown out to Fresno. I've flown down to Dominican Republic, Nashville, Vegas, Phoenix, New York City. Flew into New York City once.
Wow.
I've even flown this last winter. We flew to Iceland and back in our plane.
Yeah, Jason, you want to know the sad part is I think me and John got our licenses around the same time, and he has used and abused his in the correct way, and I have not. So I am
that is sad.
really
Right.
jealous.
I told you I could be a guinea pig for you. I don't mind flying with you. I'm not scared.
Yeah.
You want to know something funny about it? When I got my license about 2 years ago, and my kids hated flying at first. And I was so frustrated. So like, this is like very nice. You should be like, this is not something most people have. Right. It was because they didn't have internet on the plane. They couldn't be on YouTube. And I was like, I have failed them as a parent. They understand the benefits now. They love flying. But at first they didn't like it because they didn't have internet.
Yeah.
Well, you know what though? At that age, because you told me how old they were earlier, 2 years ago, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And they matured.
Now
they matured out of it within that right around. My son's around the same age or my oldest is around the same age as yours. So I get it. And there was a maturity level that has gone over that leap. So I can relate to that.
Yeah. Now they realize, oh, we don't have to take a 12-hour drive to get to and from the cabin.
Exactly.
We can get up, we can sleep in, not be stressed, fly back, and then be still back much earlier.
No doubt.
That is absolutely awesome. One question we like to ask everybody that comes on the show: what's one book or podcast that you think everybody should know about?
Never Split the Difference from Chris Voss. That book changed my life. A lot of what he talks about, I hear people say, "Oh, that's common sense." Okay, then I didn't have common sense. I'm very direct, very, very direct and very task. And so going through that and understanding that process that Chris goes through in it, that changed my life. And the concept of the book is, if you're negotiating for somebody's life, you can't just say, "Hey, let's just meet in the middle. Let's just cut the person in half." You can't do it. You have to come to a solution.
Yeah, that makes sense, and I get that very directness of like, hey, just get the deal over with, or whatever, just get or I want this, and that's it, And that book does do a good job of explaining how to, it's not always about price, it's not always about terms. There's other things going on. So, super good book. We'll get that in the show notes. It's been mentioned here a few times, but if you haven't read it, go out and grab it. John, where's the best place people can find you on the interwebs if they want to contact you or see what you're doing or see where you're flying?
They can find me on Instagram and Facebook as the Flipping IT Guy. Pretty simple.
Flipping IT Guy. We will get that in the show notes as well. And guys, again, John, appreciate you coming on. It was very insightful. Always fun to hear from other people all across this country. And if you got any value out of it, please share it. It's the best compliment we can give John. And we'll catch you guys on the next one.
Thanks for tuning in to the Real Estate Reserve podcast. Do us a favor and like, comment, and share our broadcast. It helps the algorithm and helps us spread the word too. Till next time, thank you for tuning in.